Hello and welcome back to this Library of Ruina series. In this video, we'll be taking on the purple tier. This is the last reception and star of the city and gives us a strong key page and some great combat pages, so let's get started. The reception of the purple tier is a 1-act 1v5 reception against Iori. She has 700 HP, 290 stagger resistance, is slash damage and blunt stagger endured, and has 4 passives. First, we have Shimmering as she is a boss enemy. Next, we have Manipulator of Odds, which makes it so that whenever she min rolls, the die gets rerolled once. Next, we have Changing Stances, which makes her switch between 4 unique decks every couple of scenes, as well as giving her some power when she does so. Her last passive is Dimension Walker. When Iori falls to 350 HP, she'll end the act and hop to a different floor chosen at random. Before this happens, her HP cannot fall below 350 and it'll only happen once per reception. This sounds really annoying, but considering you have 3 floors to kill her, it's more of a minor inconvenience. Before I talk about her pages, I need to talk about her deck system. Iori has 4 different decks, one for each of the damage types as well as the defensive deck. The stances passively give her 2 power and an additional effect, which I'll be going over as I talk about the decks. Each of her decks has 3 pages, and she has a mass attack that can be played on any stance. Slashing Stance is all about power stacking and big damage. The effect increases her damage dealt by 50%. Serpent Sword Technique rolls 3-6, 2-4, and draws 1 page. Normally, a page like this is fairly easy to outroll, but since Iori gets a minimum of 2 power, it's actually fairly difficult. It's not unheard of for her to get 8+ power in Slash Stance. This is in part due to Snake Slit, her next page. This one rolls 2-4, 2-4 slash, 4-8 evade, and on combat start gives her +2 slash power this scene. Additionally, the first die inflicts 1 bleed. This is her bread and butter, and what makes this stance the most annoying to deal with in my opinion. Clashing into it is fairly hard, as she's likely to be casting 2 or more, so even your 3-cost bombs might not be able to win. Her last slash page is Violet Blade. This page has a singular 5-15 slash and an average slash counter die. The gimmick of this page is that power affects the slash die twice as much, so I'll often get over 10 bonus power. One thing to note about it though is that power reducers affect it twice as much as well. So Esther's Castigation will give it a -24 to power, making it almost always roll 1. If you don't have that, then just mitigate with a block die, as you're almost certainly not outrolling it. Piercing Stance focuses on inflicting status ailments, with the effect of doubling amount of status ailments inflicted with combat pages. Snake's Prey rolls 3-5, 3-7, and on combat start, increases the amount of bleed inflicted by combat pages by 1. Additionally, the second die inflicts 1 bleed on hit. This one isn't as threatening as Serpent Sword Technique, as although it inflicts 4 bleed on hit at a minimum, there isn't much power spamming going around, so you have a decent shot of beating it with your 2-cost value pages. Venomous Fangs rolls 4-8, 3-7 pierce, 3-8 block. Additionally, the first die inflicts 3 bleed on hit, and the second die inflicts 1 fragile next scene in the scene after that. This page is quite strong, as it can inflict a large amount of bleed on hit, and the rolls are also quite strong, but your 3-cost bombs should have a decent shot of beating it still. That's less so with her last card, Laceration. This page rolls 5-9, 5-8 pierce, 6-8 block. Additionally, it has a slightly below average pierce counter die that inflicts 2 bleed on hit. The first die inflicts 3 bleed on hit next scene and the scene after, and the second die inflicts 1 fragile on hit next scene. Your best bet with this page is to try and mitigate it, or using a fully empowered Emotional Turbulence or Fervent Emotions. Blunting Stance focuses on stagger damage, as the effect increases the amount of stagger damage dealt by 50%. Strike Down rolls 8-13 blunt and 5-6 block, with the blunt recovering 3 stagger resist on hit. This page gets countered by a block on 1 and doubly countered by Repressed Flesh, but also is the least threatening page in the blunting stance. Great Serpent's Impact rolls 2-6 block, 5-7, 3-6 blunt. Additionally, on combat start, it makes the user's blunt attacks deal 2 bonus stagger damage, and the blunt on 2 recovers 3 stagger resist on hit. This page doesn't have a very high roll average, but the blunt power boosters make up for it mostly. Your 3-cost bomb should still be able to beat it though. Duel rolls 8-17 blunt, 5-9, 4-8 block, and has an average blunt counter die. Additionally, all of the dice reduce the power of the target's next die by 2 on Clash Win. This only has one offensive die, so the damage is fairly low, and it can be countered somewhat with a block on 1, similarly to Violet Blade. However, unlike Violet Blade, even if you do get hit, it's still not going to be very much damage. Finally, Guarding Stance predictably focuses on defense, and its passive effect cleanses all status ailments. Parry is another counter die only page, and this one rolls 4 to 10 evade, 3 to 7 blunt. Her next page is Serpentine Barrier, which has 3 block counter dice that roll 5 to 10, 4 to 10, 4 to 9. Both of these pages are counter only, so you can throw your dice however you'd like onto them. Identify Weak Point is a bit different. It rolls 6 to 9 block, 5 to 9, 5 to 9 slash. However, on use, the offensive dice switch to the type that the target is weakest to. The rolls on this page aren't too scary, so you'll probably be able to beat it with your 3-cost bombs. Finally, every deck has access to Mirage Storm, a 7-cost mass individual with 3 dice rolling 4 to 9 slash, 4 to 9 blunt, 4 to 8 pierce. Additionally, the slash deals 5 bonus damage on hit, the blunt deals 5 bonus stagger damage on hit, and the pierce inflicts 3 bleed and 1 fragile next scene and the scene after on hit. This mass attack isn't too threatening if you have a 3-cost bomb in your hand, but if Iori is on one of the offensive stances, then one of the dice will get a ton of extra power, making it even harder to beat. Overall, there isn't too much strategy here. Clash with your strongest pages, free hit with the rest. Be especially wary of her counter dice as they can tear up your team if you're not paying attention. If you're struggling, there are a few options. The first one is to load up on defensive dice. Ferris Guard, Iron Wall, and Beyond are all solid options for this. The other one is to go Firing Squad on Iori. Freeze W101 made an example video of what I'm about to show you, and it'll be linked in the description. 4 Thumb Soldados and 1 Dennis with 3 Take the Shot, 3 Indiscriminate Shots, and 3 Opportunity Spotted. You'll have 3 Librarians with Snipe, Blind Fire, Concentration, and Meow Meow, 1 with Snipe, Blind Fire, Buzz Buzz, Improv Drumming, and Oinky Oink, and 1 Librarian with Puppet Skeleton, Wedge, Buzz Buzz, and Oinky Oink. From there, it's just regular Firing Squad. Page priority is Indiscriminate Shots, Take the Shot, Opportunity Spotted, and you should be able to get her HP thresholds down in 2 or 3 scenes. The warp doesn't really matter as she'll just kill them and you can go back to the Firing Squad team, but I'd recommend having a regular team lined up as well just in case something goes wrong. Once you beat the purple tier, we have a few deck building considerations. Let's start with the pages. Serpent Sword Technique is not worth using. The rolls are abysmal and drawing a page isn't worth it on its own. In any situation you'd use this page, the Woveless City is probably better. Snake Slit is a more focused page. In a slash deck, it can put in some serious work, and there's actually a fairly silly deck consisting of 3 Snake Slit, 3 Sharpened Blade, and 3 Woveless City with 3 times slash power into passives. I'm not sure the efficiency of that build though. Other than that, it'll do fine in any slash build, singleton or otherwise. Violet Blade is a bit more situational. As a 3-cost with only 1 die, you're likely going to be taking some damage in return for using this, but when getting the achievement A Singular Strike, this is one of the standout options. Snake's Prey is in an interesting position. In a deck focused on bleed generation, it's probably better than Violet Flame is in burn decks, but unless I was running singleton, I probably wouldn't run it. Venomous Fangs is pretty strong. It has the same roll average of Creek, but it has a bunch of extra utility. If you're looking for another 2-cost for your Pierce Singleton decks, then this is a very strong option, and in a bleed focused Pierce deck, then this is one of the best pages for it. Laceration is probably the best of the 3-cost cards that this reception gives you. The roll average is pretty strong and it has a bunch of extra status defects. Definitely a standout option in any Pierce strategy. Strike Down is not a page I'd be looking to use except as a counter page. 2 dice isn't stellar, and while the 1 is very good, the 2 leaves much to be desired, and the 3 stagger resist recovery doesn't provide enough utility for me to be a rush to add this page. Great Serpent's impact isn't much better. The roll average is very low, and there isn't a crazy amount of utility. The extra stagger damage is nice, but in the end, it might be better to get that extra stagger damage by using a higher damage page overall. Duel is a defensive focused page with a very strong 1. I wouldn't be in a rush to put it into my blunt decks, but defensive focused decks might find some good use out of it, as the blunt die can stand on its own without any power boosters and the effect is quite nice. Parry, like Diao 2, isn't worth using in most situations as the 2 counter dice make it a purely reactive page. This one rolls even lower and has worse dice types, so I'd avoid this one even more. Serpentine Barrier though, I actually kind of like. 3 very solid block counter dice make for a great silver bullet. I wouldn't be in a rush to put this into every deck, but in a couple of decks, it can really bring everything together. Finally, identify weak point is fine. The roll average is pretty solid, but it doesn't provide any utility, so I'd still prefer pages like Emotional Turbulence, Repressed Flesh, etc. Now we can talk about the purple tier's key page. She has 103 HP, 53 stagger resist, is slash damage and blunt stagger injured, and has 3 passives. Speed 3 makes sense for a color fixer, Manipulator of Odds, which behaves exactly the same as it does in the reception, and Changing Stances, which gives the player access to the same 4 decks that Iori used against you. Their effects are identical to the enemy version as well. You'll start on a random one and can pay 1 light to switch between them as an on-play action. There's a cooldown of 2 scenes before you can swap again. There are many different ways to build purple tier decks. You could use universal power boosters and make different decks for different situations, specialize in as well as the damage types and focus in on that, or my favorite way, ignore all that and abuse the guard stance status defect immunity. If you think all the way back to my God on Warp cleanup crew, you'll remember that I said that Overcharge would be a great page if you could find a way to get around the Immobilize. At the time, I suggested a Brawl deck, but now I'll suggest putting 1 Ominous Power or Grace to Grass, 2 Leap, 2 Energy Cycle, 3 Overcharge, and 1 Serpentine Barrier or Beyond into the purple tier charge deck, slap the Kane off his charge passives, triple R-Suit and some sort of hollow into the passive slots, and ignore the rest of the decks. This deck has carried me through the entire endgame, and now it can carry you as well. If you don't want to do that and instead want to focus on building 4 decks that shine in different scenarios, I'd recommend building the Goofy Snake Slit deck for Slash, Generic Pierce Singleton, Blunt Light Regen in 3 costs, and Guard Block Spam. For passives, you're going to be running universal power boosters like Fervor, Locked Potential, or Eye of Death Enervation, as well as sustain passives like Collars, Electric Shock, Keep You in Stride, etc. Unfortunately, no matter what sort of decks you build, you might have trouble finding where to put in Mirage Storm. The page is strong, as all mass attacks are, but since purple tier is so focused onto certain damage types and Mirage Storm is 3 different types, it's hard for me to put it into any deck. I would say the strongest effect is the Pierce one, so making that one hit is the most important, but it's just a bit too unfocused for a purple tier deck. In the next video, we'll be starting another abnormality train as we take on the realization of the floor of language. I'll see you soon, and as always, thank you for watching.